What happens when a beloved country star walks into what should be a routine morning show appearance only to find himself in the middle of a brewing controversy that nobody saw coming? Blake Shelton thought he was just stopping by the Today Show studio for a friendly chat with Jenna and the gang. But what unfolded next would leave everyone in the studio speechless and viewers at home glued to their screens. Before we dive into this explosive exchange, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story is about to get wild. The morning had started like any other at the Today Show studios in New York City. Blake Shelton arrived around 7:30 a.m., coffee in hand, greeting the crew with his usual easygoing charm. He had been booked for a standard promotional segment, talking about his latest album and upcoming tour. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just another quick stop in the life of one of country music's biggest stars. Jenna Bush Hager was already on set reviewing her notes with the producers. She and Blake had always shared natural chemistry on camera, easy banter, lots of laughs, and fan-favorite moments. Their interviews were known for being lighthearted and fun, which is exactly what Blake expected that morning. But as he walked into the studio, something felt different. Jenna seemed tense, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The producers spoke in low whispers, occasionally checking their phones with worry etched across their faces. Blake sensed it immediately. He had spent more than 2 decades in the spotlight. He knew when a room was hiding something. During their pre-show chatter, Jenna's responses felt forced, as if she were mentally rehearsing something that had nothing to do with promoting his album. Blake leaned back, studying her. "Everything all right over there, Jenna?" he asked with a playful drawl. She forced a laugh, brushing it off. But something about her tone only deepened his suspicion. Once the cameras rolled, Jenna slipped into her polished on-air persona. The interview began smoothly, laughs, music talk, a few jokes about the voice, and Blake sharing a funny story from back home. But then the atmosphere shifted. Jenna's tone dipped into something tighter, more serious. "Blake, I want to talk about something a little more serious," she said carefully. In that moment, Blake knew whatever tension he'd noticed earlier was about to surface, and it wasn't going to be pretty. "Sure thing," Blake replied, though his smile had thinned. "Fire away." And that's when Jenna brought up the comments. The transcript, the online reactions, the accusations that he had insulted the newer generation of country artists. The look on Blake's face said it all: confusion, disbelief, and the first spark of irritation. This interview was no longer what he had signed up for. Blake's confusion turned slowly into concern as Jenna pressed forward, reading directly from a transcript of his recent radio interview. She quoted him saying that some newer artists wouldn't know real country if it bit them, a line that Blake remembered, but not quite in the way she was presenting it. The moment she said it, he felt the energy in the room shift. Producers stiffened behind the cameras, and even Jenna's co-hosts exchanged subtle glances. Sensing the tension growing like a storm cloud, Blake cleared his throat and tried to keep his voice calm. "Jenna, I think there's some context missing here," he said. He explained that his comments were aimed at the industry's overall direction, the overly manufactured, overly commercialized pattern he had watched evolve for years. He wasn't attacking individuals, especially not the artists Jenna implied. But Jenna wasn't yielding. She continued pressing, highlighting how several rising artists had taken his comments personally on social media. The mention of specific names, Morgan Wade and Parker McCullum, was the moment everything tipped. Blake sat up straighter, his expression tightening. While he remembered being blunt in that interview, he certainly didn't target those artists. In fact, he respected them deeply. Hearing their names dragged into this confrontation felt like bait, like a setup designed to push him into a reaction. "Hold up now," he said, the warmth draining from his tone. "I never mentioned those artists by name. I'd never disrespect them." He emphasized their talent, praising their authenticity, making it clear the feud Jenna was suggesting simply didn't exist. The studio felt uncomfortably quiet. Even the cameras seemed to hum louder, capturing every breath as Blake tried to regain control of the spiraling conversation. But Jenna, perhaps driven by producer pressure or the promise of a viral moment, refused to ease off. She pushed the idea of platform responsibility, challenging Blake about the impact of his words. It was then that Blake's frustration finally cracked his composure. His voice sharpened, his gaze hardened. "So now I'm being told how to use my platform?" He shot back. His reaction made the room collectively stiffen. Blake was not known for losing his cool on live TV, and the rare flash of anger made everyone realize they were witnessing something unusual and messy. Jenna countered immediately, trying to frame her point as accountability rather than accusation. But Blake wasn't buying it. He saw the pattern clearly: the transcript, the selective quotes, the implication that he had taken aim at younger artists. To him, it felt like an ambush masked as journalism. The tension continued building until it became absolutely clear. This interview was heading into dangerous territory neither of them could gracefully back out of. The atmosphere inside the Today Show studio had transformed from lighthearted morning chatter to something sharp-edged and unpredictable. Blake Shelton, usually the embodiment of laid-back charm, now sat forward in his chair, jaw set, eyes burning with a mix of confusion and disbelief. Jenna, on the other hand, seemed torn between maintaining her composure and doubling down on the line of questioning that had clearly rattled her guest. As Blake defended his intentions, explaining again that his critique was aimed at industry trends and not individual artists, Jenna leaned in, her voice gaining firmness. But when you say things like that, Blake, how do you expect people to interpret them? She asked. You're not just another musician giving an opinion. You're Blake Shelton. People listen. Blake exhaled a long, tired breath. People also need to use common sense, he replied, his voice edged with irritation. I wasn't attacking anyone. I was talking about authenticity in music. There's a difference. The conversation might have stabilized there, but Jenna took it a step further, highlighting the newer artists who had publicly reacted. Blake's patience thinned visibly. The mention of their names, Morgan Wade, Parker McCullum, felt like another twist of the knife. He knew instantly that the narrative was being shaped in real time and not fairly. The tension reached a boiling point when Jenna implied that Blake's comments were divisive and harmful. That was when Blake leaned forward, voice low and controlled. You're twisting this, he said, and you know it. The studio crew froze. Even the steady hum of the cameras felt heavier. Jenna, perhaps sensing things slipping, fired back. I'm doing my job, Blake. Asking questions. Isn't that what you expect from a journalist? That was the spark. Blake stood abruptly, ripping the microphone from his shirt. Your job used to be about conversations, he said, his voice rising. Now it's about creating a moment that'll get clicks. Congratulations, you got one. The studio erupted into silent chaos. Producers exchanged panicked glances, unsure whether to cut the segment or let the drama play out. Jenna, flustered but determined not to appear shaken, tried to regain control. You're really going to storm off? Instead of talking about the impact of your words. Blake paused mid-step, turning slowly. His expression was no longer fiery. It was deeply disappointed. An adult conversation, he said quietly, would have meant talking to me before blindsiding me on air. The weight of the accusation hung in the air. And then, for the first time, Jenna's confidence visibly wavered. The air inside the Today Show studio felt thick, almost suffocating, as Blake Shelton stood at the edge of the set. His microphone lay on the coffee table, a quiet but powerful symbol that the interview was over. Jenna sat frozen in her chair, her expression shifting between shock, frustration, and something that almost looked like regret. The crew held their breath, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment unfold naturally. Blake turned once more toward Jenna, his voice calmer now, but unmistakably resolute. I came here excited, he said. I wanted to talk about music, about the young artists I'm collaborating with, about a charity project that actually matters. But instead, I walked into something else entirely. His words cut through what little remained of Jenna's composure. For a moment, she looked as if she wanted to apologize, but years of live television instinct held her in place. Any sign of vulnerability on air could spiral into another kind of headline. So instead, she swallowed hard and tried one final time. Blake, can we just reset? We can talk about your new album. We can talk about the charity. Just reset this. Blake shook his head slowly without turning around fully. Some things, he said, you can't reset. Not after the way you handled this. Not after you tried to turn my words into something they weren't. There was no anger left in his voice, only disappointment. And that somehow stung more than anything he had said before. He walked toward the exit. The camera is still rolling, even though no one seemed to have officially ended the segment. The studio was so quiet that the sound of his boots hitting the floor echoed through the room. As he reached the doorway, Jenna attempted one last desperate line of defense. "If you walk off now," she said, "people will think you can't handle tough questions." Blake stopped again, slowly turning his head. "Handling questions isn't the issue," he replied. "Handling dishonesty is." With that, he stepped off the set, leaving a stunned silence behind him. Producers immediately poured onto the stage, signaling for commercial as the broadcast cut abruptly. Jenna sat alone for a moment, staring at the empty guest chair where a friendly, familiar conversation should have taken place. She exhaled shakily, realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. Meanwhile, in the lobby, Blake finally felt fresh air against his face. As he approached the exit doors, a young production assistant hurried over to him, nervously wringing her hands. "Mr. Shelton, I just wanted to say, I heard the original radio interview. You didn't say anything wrong. What happened up there wasn't fair." For the first time that morning, Blake's hardened expression softened. "Thank you," he said gently. "Remember this, context matters. Don't let anyone twist your intentions." With that, Blake stepped out onto the New York City street, leaving behind one of the most unforgettable moments in morning TV history.